All episodes of A Trial by Podcast are for informational and entertainment purposes only. Much to their parents' dismay, neither host is a lawyer, journalist, or investigator. Just two people with microphones and Wi-Fi. All actions discussed are alleged, and all parties are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. For the full legal mumbo-jumbo, check the show notes.
I'm Kelsey.
And I'm Emily.
And today I am going to tell you about one of New Zealand's most infamous mysteries. So on New Year's Eve, 1997, 21-year-old Ben Smart and 17-year-old Olivia Hope celebrated New Year's Eve at Furneaux Lodge with about 1,500 other people. In the early morning hours, they were seen boarding a boat with a mystery man, but they were never seen again. Despite extensive searches, their bodies were never found. In 1999, 26-year-old Scott Watson was convicted of their murders based largely on circumstantial evidence and witness testimony, including the identification of his boat, Blade, as the scene of the crime. Watson has maintained his innocence, and the case remains controversial to this day, with many people questioning the reliability of the evidence and whether or not the right man was put behind bars. So, is Scott Watson guilty, or is there an innocent man in prison for something he did not do? Well, this is a trial by podcast, so we'll let you be the judge. Burn, burn.
Bring it back.
I'm excited about today's because this was a request from one of our listeners, Bex, who is English, but she lives in New Zealand. And I made a post on Instagram saying, I want to cover some of the most famous cases from other countries because I find them interesting. And so Bex was like, there was a couple of New Zealanders that commented saying no one ever covers New Zealand cases. I think another one was a girl named Mihaela, shout out Mihaela. And sorry if I'm not saying that right. But I was like, all right, we got to do New Zealand because it's on my bucket list to go there. So we got to get a following over there in New Zealand so we can do the live show there one day and make our dreams come true. So if you live in New Zealand, send this to all of your friends if you think we do a good job covering the case. But yeah, I think with that being said, the two quick business things I've got today. Make sure you're following us wherever you're listening, especially if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, because I heard that if you don't listen consistently every week, like if you skip a week or something, after I don't know how many weeks of skipping, Apple Podcasts will unfollow us from your account or whatever because you're not actively listening. So just make sure that you're still following us, or if you haven't followed us yet, make sure you're following us wherever you're listening. It just really helps us with the algorithm and helps you so you don't miss any of our episodes. And I just got a reminder from Emily's dog, Molly. Miss Molly is here with us today. So if you hear a little bit of background noise, that's just Molly. But second piece of Biz Nasty is listener stories. We want to start collecting listener stories. Don't worry, it'll be for bonus episodes. We're not going to replace regular episodes with listener stories, but send those to us. You can email them in to atrialbypodcast@gmail.com. Yeah, I think that's it. You got anything, Em? Anything important on your mind?
I feel like I had something I wanted to talk about on my way over here, and now I don't remember. Oh, the New Zealand accent is, we were talking about this yesterday. But.
Yeah, so I asked I told Emily, I said, we're doing a New Zealand case, so you got to practice your New Zealand accent.
Yes.
Yes.
But no, I looked it up, and Aisha from Below Deck Med, my idol, my girl, she's from New Zealand. So I was like, oh.
You just do Aisha.
I love her accent.
Okay.
Yes.
Is it just like E's sound like eyes? I don't know.
It's
I know
it's
I like
Australian with a twist.
I'm horrible with accents. Like I think the only one I can kind of do is a Southern accent a little bit, but that's it.
You're giving Dolly Parton.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going for.
Well, you nailed it.
Thank you. Yeah, so like I said, we're doing a New Zealand case today. I don't know if you want to call it the murders or the disappearance of Ben Smart and Olivia Hope, because they have been presumed to be murdered, but their bodies have never been found. However, Scott Watson was convicted of murdering them.
Oh, interesting.
Now, this is a big case in New Zealand. There's a lot of people who think that Scott Watson is innocent and that they've got the wrong guy behind bars. And one of the biggest arguments for this is that I guess the way it works in New Zealand, if you don't admit your guilt, you can't get parole. Like the parole board will always deny you. You have to admit like that you know, to show remorse of what you did. And
but what happens when you're innocent and you're convicted?
Well, that's exactly what people say, because Scott Watson has gone in front of the parole board multiple times now, and he has never once admitted his guilt. And so people say, you know, if you did it, why wouldn't you just say you did it? You already served the time. It's going to help you get out. See, even Molly knows. So with that being said, let's get into the story. Furno Lodge was the ultimate destination for a New Year's Eve celebration. Nestled at the base of majestic mountains in the Endeavour Inlet of New Zealand's breathtaking Marlborough Sounds, this idyllic hotel offered a tropical paradise right on the water. The Marlborough Sounds are a sprawling network of sea-drowned valleys at the northern tip of New Zealand's South Island, which create a stunning backdrop for any event. So when you combine this serene beauty with a festive atmosphere, the flowing of drinks, and the energy of a holiday and ringing in a new year, the result is an unforgettable and unstoppable party. This one specifically was 1,500 people deep. Can you picture that?
That's a big party.
Tropical paradise with 1,500 people celebrating, and you're 17 and 21 years old.
Rage at its finest.
Rage against the island. So you can see why in 1997, Ben Smart and Olivia Hope were extremely excited to spend New Year's Eve at the lodge. Now, despite what your assumptions may be, Ben and Olivia were not really a couple. They were just friends. It does kind of sound like maybe they smooched a little bit here and there, but it was more like a casual thing. They weren't together.
Like FWB. Okay.
Yes, FWBs. I like that. Friends with benefits, if you don't know. So Ben and Olivia didn't actually go to Furno Lodge together. They went separately and ran into each other there. I don't know if they knew ahead of time that they would both be there, but they didn't end up meeting up until about 10 p.m. that night. Now, Olivia was the head girl at school, and she excelled academically. She was finishing up her final year of school, and then she intended on studying law at Otago University after she graduated. On top of her studies, Olivia also found time for music, and she was a talented pianist. Olivia's well-rounded work ethic was in part thanks to her father, Gerald, who was the CEO of the Marlborough Research Center at the time.
That was beautiful.
Thanks. Sorry, guys. Me and Emily went out for our friend's birthday last night, and I'm not going to lie to you, I'm struggle busing today.
We're just a little sleepy.
I am a passenger on the struggle bus. I've already tripped it. We're going to cut it all out so you don't have to deal with it. But I'm like not even a full page in, and I've already messed up 25 times.
Tripping, stumbling through her words.
So he was the CEO of the Marlborough Research Center at the time. And on top of his work, he was also involved in local politics and hoped to run for mayor at one point. Her mother was a part owner of a winery, and I believe that Olivia was actually doing some sort of like internship or summer job. Not summer job, but in between the school break, between Christmas and New Year's, she was working at this winery. So the mom owned the winery and then also a catering company. And the two parents together provided a very comfortable and very privileged lifestyle for Olivia and her older sister, Amelia. Now, Ben wasn't much far off either. He came from a great family and he was a civil engineer. He also excelled academically. And for a 21-year-old, being an engineer already, he was doing very well for himself. Now, on Thursday, December 30th, Olivia Hope stopped at the grocery store before she headed home to pack up her things for New Year's Eve to go on this trip that she had planned with her sister Amelia and Amelia's friends from university, because Amelia's older. She's a little bit more independent, but, Olivia's only 17, so she can kind of she's old enough to tag along on these things. So the two girls, along with 7 other friends, had chartered a small yacht for the weekend to celebrate the holiday. Now, when I was reading this story, doing all the research for it, I kept reading. There's so much talk of yachts in this. And I was like, how rich are these people? Yachts? I believe that a yacht just refers to a boat that has sleeping quarters in it.
And probably a bathroom.
Yeah, like that you can, you can cook. It's just...
I mean, yeah, but that's still a nice boat.
It's still a nice boat for sure, but it's not like I was picturing like these like yachts stories that you see like celebrities on.
Yeah, with like cabin quarters.
Right.
And
So I started calling them boats just because I don't know boat culture that well, but I was like, in my mind, I was like, yacht. I feel like for people who don't know boats well, I was like, that gives people the wrong impression. So sometimes you'll hear me say yacht. Sometimes I changed it to boat, but anyway, they chartered this yacht, which was called Tamarack, and the yacht picked them up later that same day from Watamunga Bay in the Queen Charlotte Sound. I love the names of everything.
I was going to say Watamunga.
Watamunga?
What's a munga?
I don't know. But yeah, and like something about these areas called the Sounds, I'm like, I don't know where that came from, but I like it. The Sounds.
It's giving like fiction movie.
Yes. Yeah. Like it's giving Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
The Marlborough Sounds. The Targaryen Sounds.
Can tell you're watching Game of Thrones right now.
Dude, yes, I'm obsessed. So the next day, the Tamarack headed to a town called Picton to pick up 3 more people for the trip before they headed to their destination, which was, of course, Furno Lodge, where, like I said, 1,500 young people are getting trashed to ring in the new year. So on the
that's like the equivalent to Miami Beach during spring break.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like to me. It sounds insane, and I want to go. This is now on my butt.
I would not like to. That's a lot of people. That's too many people for me.
Yeah, but it's like a big area, and like everyone just like anchors their boats like in the bay. Bless you, Molly. Everyone anchors their boats like in the bay, so there's just hundreds of boats out there. And I feel like
maybe that would be fun then. Maybe.
I feel like it would be awesome. So on the afternoon of the 31st, the yacht anchored into the bay's waters, and Olivia, Amelia, and all of their friends took a water taxi from the Tamarack to the shore of the inlet. Now, here's the thing is, for anyone who doesn't know boats, these bigger boats, they're too big they can't just dock up right near the shore. So when you have a bigger boat like that, they have to anchor further out in deeper waters. And then there are smaller boats that will come get you off the boat, take you to shore where the docks are, where it's shallow. So while we don't have all of the details of the partying, unfortunately, because I kind of wish we did, we do know that at some point, Olivia ran into her friend, Ben Smart, whom she had been friends with for years. Now, Ben had actually been planning to stay at a rental in Punga Cove, which was close by.
Another cool name.
I know. Dude, everything is cool.
I want to stay in Punga Cove.
I want to go to New Zealand so bad. So bad. So, however, for reasons unknown, it seems like in the early hours of January 1st, Ben ended up heading back to the Tamarack with Olivia instead of heading to his own accommodations to go to sleep. Now, I say reasons unknown, but I feel like we can probably guess the reasons.
Had a little sleepover.
They were looking for a little sleepover.
Yeah, just cuddles.
Now, of course, they took a water taxi back to the yacht, But when they arrived, they found that all of the beds were full because I couldn't find pictures of this exact yacht, but I was trying to look up something similar. And it seems like a lot of it, you know, it's very close quarters. There's like bunk beds and stuff. So even though Olivia technically had a bed on this, you know, Amelia and their friends that were also on this boat like brought friends back and stuff. So like they get there and there's nowhere to sleep.
I'd be pissed.
Oh my God. I wouldn't
get the fuck out of my bed. That's mine.
Dude, same.
I'm not going anywhere. Where did she end up sleeping?
Well, that is unfortunately where this takes a very, very bad turn. Oh, no. And we're going to get there. But yeah, I would be like, absolutely the fuck not. Here's a pillow. You can sleep on the floor. Yeah. But you're not sleeping in my bed. So when they get there and there's nowhere to sleep, it's already past 4 o'clock in the morning at this point. And so Olivia's probably pissed and she just packs up all of her things from the yacht. And when a water taxi pulls up again to actually drop her sister and her sister's friend off, there's no more room. There's no more room. So she and Ben get back onto this water taxi.
What about her sister and her friend?
They stayed on the yacht. That's where I'm like, I don't know if there was, you know, maybe Amelia's bed was empty or what. But I did read that Olivia explained to Amelia, there's a billion people here. There's nowhere to sleep. So I don't know why Amelia chose to stay and why Olivia left. I don't know if Olivia and Ben had originally planned on just going to Ben's accommodations on the shore. But it sounds like their plan was get back on this water taxi and go to shore and look for somewhere to sleep. Yeah. That's the way that I read it. So I don't know why, you know, they were looking for somewhere to sleep instead of going to Ben's. I'm not sure exactly how far it was from Furno Lodge. Okay. Because I don't think it was right there. You know what I mean? So the captain of this water taxi is a man named Guy Wallace. Actually, I love a guy named Guy. I should say the captain of this water taxi was a guy named Guy Wallace. And he becomes a massive part of this story, if not the most important witness in this case. So Guy Wallace later tells police that Ben and Olivia had asked him to take them back to shore, and he agreed. However, he says that as Ben and Olivia were debating where they would try and sleep that night, one of the other passengers on the water taxi told them that he had extra beds on his boat and they could sleep there if you wanted. Now, according to Guy Wallace, when they tried to accept this offer, the man then made some sort of comment along the lines of telling Olivia, oh no, only you can stay. Like your friend can't stay. So he's saying the teenage girl can come sleep on his boat, but Ben can't come with her. Oh, yeah. Creepy. Yeah. Creepy. Immediate no. Now, they kind of somehow come to an agreement, and the guy says that both of them can stay. So it seems like he was kind of... At that point, I would still be like, no, that gave me... No. Right. That's a red flag. That is a red flag. Yeah. Now, according to Guy Wallace, the man looked, quote, a bit feral, end quote, and scruffy. He later told police that the man was unshaven with messy, wavy hair. Wallace says that the man was acting sleazy towards Olivia, and when he dropped the three off at the man's boat, he felt a shiver after. He described that feeling to the New Zealand Herald as, quote, when you know something's wrong and you can't put a finger on it. I think about that moment all the time, end quote. That right there, my friends, is called your gut intuition. Yes, and of course, Wallace's gut intuition was right. Something was wrong, and Ben and Olivia would never be seen again. Now, the next morning, Amelia and the rest of the friend group, of course, noticed that Olivia was not there, but it was a crazy night, and she had collected her things and left, so they weren't super concerned about it, and they kind of figured that she must have just headed home via land instead of water with them, because she took all of her things. Yeah. So they, like I said, they're not too concerned, but when the 17-year-old didn't come home by the following day, January 2nd, now her family started to get extremely worried, and this is when they report her missing. And it's the same day that Ben was also reported missing by his family, because at first it wasn't really connected that they had gone missing together. It wasn't really reported that way.
Because they didn't go there together. They just met there.
Right.
Like met up there.
Exactly. Now, authorities began contacting boat marinas in the area, seeking out any information about the pair's whereabouts. However, in one of these communications, they accidentally included confidential information from their files on the pair. In this file, they described Olivia as, quote, spoiled, emotional, a drinker, and sexually active, end quote. So the police...
What a rude fucking description.
Yeah, and that's apparently pertinent to their case, like the police think. You know what I mean?
That
like they
she's
have
sexually active?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I understand that, they have to think of maybe she went home with someone, or you know what I mean? But also, what does spoiled have to do with it?
Yeah.
And spoiled, emotional, a drinker, it's like... You could, I don't know, just
who gave
be a
them,
little...
First of all, who gave them that information?
I'm not sure. Probably just talking to people who knew them.
Okay.
But also, she's a 17-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like all 17-year-old girls could definitely be described as emotional.
And sexually active, yeah.
Yeah. Now... This description, like I said, was supposed to be confidential. Like it was part of the police's files, but it was never meant to be released to the media. And what happened was they were sending out communications to all these marinas, and they accidentally put that in copy. I would assume at the time, this is the 90s, so I don't know what they're faxing it probably. And so they accidentally included this on the fax. And so all of the marinas... What they did is they sent it to the biggest marinas, and then they told them, hey, send these to all the smaller marinas in your area. Like they're trying to do like a branch system to get this information out as quickly as possible. So they send it out with a request for them to copy it and spread the info. And so these marinas, they were doing they did exactly what they were asked. And one in particular sent it to 28 other marinas. So, of course, this description of her spread like wildfire, and it was actually later published in the New Zealand Herald. And of course, Olivia's family was irate over this. To have their missing daughter, who they're so worried about, just painted as like this little bratty, like alcoholic, sex-crazed teenager is kind of how it came across in the media. And those points, coupled on top of the fact that, she was young, she's blonde, her parents are very well off, very wealthy, her dad's involved in politics, it gave this really negative perception of her in New Zealand. So the police did later make a public apology to Olivia's family for this. But also at the same time, it's like, well, fuck you guys. You can't really take it back.
Yeah, you already said that.
Now... Pretty quickly, the police discovered that the pair was picked up from the Tamarack by Guy Wallace, and they then bring him in for questioning. Wallace tells police that he dropped off Ben, Olivia, and this scuzzy dude at a ketch that was 38 to 40 feet long. It was white with a blue stripe and had 5 to 7 brass portholes. Now, for those of us who don't know boats, a ketch is a 2-masted sailboat. So it's got 2 poles.
Okay.
The poles are the masts that hold the sails. A ketch has 2. So we're going to learn so much boat terminology in this.
I'm going to know so much boats.
And by so much, I mean about 2 more things.
More than I knew 5 minutes ago.
Exactly. Now, the sketch that Guy Wallace draws for police of this boat, it even shows the 2 masts. So, he writes a description, and he said it was a 38 to 40 foot long ketch, and he underlined the word ketch twice. Then he draws a sketch of this ketch, and he draws it with 2 masts, okay? Mm-hmm. He's very, adamant about this fact that it is a ketch. And he also told the police that the ketch seemed to be a little bit older. It was an older wooden-style boat with a lot of rope work around the stern. Now, he tells them that when he took the remaining 2 passengers on the taxi to shore, so basically he had 5 passengers, Ben and Olivia, this scuzzy dude. He drops them off at the boat, and then there were 2 more that were still on the water taxi with him, that after he dropped Ben, Olivia, and scuzzy dude off, he takes the remaining 2 to shore.
Okay.
So he takes them to shore, and then at that point, he goes to bed. So one important thing to know about Guy Wallace is that he was actually an employee at Furno Lodge. He was a bartender, so he had a room there. And he was bartending that evening along with one of the managers, a woman named Roz. So they were bartending, but he does this water taxi thing just to make a little bit of extra money at the end of the night.
Mm-hmm. What a cool bartender name, Roz.
Right? And
like it.
And he says, too, that, like, he recognized the scuzzy dude because he and Roz had served him drinks earlier that night. So when he got on the water taxi, Guy Wallace, like, just kind of subconsciously was like, oh yeah, realized that he saw this dude earlier that night. Okay. So the point is he's gotten a decent look at this guy and he's had conversation with him at least a little bit. So he says he goes to bed in his room at Furno Lodge, but at first the police were skeptical of his story, implying that maybe he had something to do with Ben and Olivia's disappearance. So Wallace was grilled by investigators time and time again, and rumors about him began to spread around town. He told the New Zealand Herald, quote, "It was horrible. I walked into the Waikawa Bay Cruising Club, and you could have heard a pin drop. Everyone just shut up. People I'd known for a long time just shunned me. They thought I was guilty," end quote. Now, despite the pressure, Wallace insisted that he was telling the truth. He dropped Ben and Olivia off with the scuzzy dude at his ketch with the blue stripe and the brass portholes. Now, eventually, and we'll get to this point, these 2 other passengers, they corroborate Guy Wallace's story. So they say, yes, we saw Ben and Olivia being dropped off with this other guy. Okay. And they were taken to shore. And that's how we know that Guy Wallace isn't the guy. Mm-hmm. Now,
Guy is not the guy.
Guy is not the guy. He's just a guy.
He's a guy named Guy.
A guy named Guy, but not the guy. So while air and water searches were being conducted, the police put out a call for anyone who was moored in the Endeavour Inlet over the holiday to turn in their photos and videos so they could try to identify this mystery catch. And the public obliged, almost overwhelming the police with media. Yet, after sifting through the mountains, they find absolutely no evidence of the catch that's described by Wallace. There's not a single photo or video that shows a boat that fits this description that he gave them.
Weird.
Yes, weird. However, they did track down, like I said, the 2 other passengers, and they confirmed Wallace's story. They're like, yes, this happened. He's not just making this up. Mm-hmm. Now, after weeks of searching for this catch, police started to question if it really existed at all or if Wallace's memory had failed him. Now, the other passengers had been drinking that evening and they were drunk, okay? So they tell police they weren't sure about the description of the boat. They couldn't really remember what the boat looked like. They weren't really paying attention. Now, Guy Wallace said that he had had a few drinks earlier in the evening, but he was working all night, so he was sober, and he said he was probably the only sober person there that night because everyone was wasted. But still, at this point, police thought there were 1,500 people there. They're taking pictures and videos. There would be some evidence of this catch, but there wasn't. So at this point, they start to think it's time to consider that maybe the boat was not a double-masted catch. but maybe it was a single-masted sailboat known as a sloop, and they had just the one in mind to investigate first. You see, on January 7th, a local man from Picton heard that the police had wanted to speak with anyone who was at Furno Lodge that night. This man, who was 26-year-old Scott Watson, headed into the police station to offer his help. He explained that he had been moored in the Endeavor Inlet that night, and he even pointed out where on a map to show police. Now, the following day, the police took an official statement from him, and 4 days later, on January 12th, they asked him to come in for a third time. This is when Scott realized that he was no longer considered a witness in this investigation. He was a suspect. While he was interrogated, his boat, which he lived on, by the way, this was his home. He did not have a house or an apartment or anything on land. So while he was being interrogated this third time, his boat was seized and his parents' and his sister's homes were raided. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's go backward a little bit and let me tell you a little bit about who Scott Watson was and how he ended up at Furno Lodge that night. So in short, Scott Watson is a royal piece of shit. But I know you guys, and I know you want the long version, so I'm going to give it to you.
We need the deets.
There's too many deets for me to even include them all about what a piece of shit this guy is. But I'm going to give you the highlights, okay? So Scott Watson was born and raised in Picton, New Zealand, which is a part of the Marlborough region. So like I said, Picton was actually one of the stops that the Tamarack made to pick people up. So it's right in this same area. Now, his family was part of the working class, but still, boating was a major hobby of theirs. Scott grew up on the water, and I mean that literally. At one point during his childhood, his family lived on a boat for 6 years. Can you imagine living on a boat with your family for 6 years?
I feel like I wouldn't be able to walk straight.
I would run away.
You know?
I would run away.
Have you ever been on a boat, like a cruise or anything, and you get off?
Dude,
the whole land feels like it's moving.
I'm not a big cruise ships. I've been on one when I was a kid and I was fine then. But the older I get, I'm like, I don't want to be trapped.
Yeah, I was going to say ever since COVID and that, I think it was more than one, wasn't it? Because there was a COVID outbreak and they were stuck on the boat for a month.
And then didn't one like tip over at one point? I don't know. But
I don't want to know if it did.
I have no desire to be like in the middle of an ocean. So they would spend summers sailing around, and then in the winter they would pick somewhere to dock the boat so they could work on shore and make some money. Now, Scott even built his own boat in his backyard, and this is the sloop that was eventually seized by authorities, which he named Blade. Growing up, Scott was known to be somewhat of a loner, and taking a look at his criminal history, it's evident that he was an extremely troubled teen. From 15 to 18 years old, Watson was convicted on 48 criminal charges.
Damn. 3 years. Wow.
That's crazy. Now, most of these were for smaller crimes like burglaries and thefts, but there was one assault conviction after he got into a fight with another teen that he actually served time for. Now, on top of this, teenage Watson was also known for displaying inappropriate and some would say predatory behavior towards women and girls. There are allegations from multiple different women that Watson attempted to sexually assault them when they were all teenagers. Now, there are also reports from women after his teen years as well. One woman said that he held her at knife point while attempting to assault her. However, none of these allegations ever went to trial, so these claims they're all alleged, okay? Now, he also had a nice little tattoo on his knuckles. So it's spelled out skin on his knuckles, which was to represent his skinhead lifestyle. because he was very, very passionate about the Aryan race. So, on top of being a creepy fucking predator with 48 convictions, he's a stupid, racist fucking piece of shit.
And he said, let me just put that right on my knuckles. So everybody.
That's the kind of person he is. Now, a close friend of Watson's later told Ian Wishart, who actually wrote a book on Ben and Olivia's case, he says that not long before Ben and Olivia went missing, Watson had told multiple friends that he wanted to rape and kill a woman. So
It's the fucking idiots that tell people what they want to do and then they end up doing it. And then they're like, no, that wasn't me. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Now, more specifically, Scott's closest friend, who is a man by the name of Andrew Averill, told Wishart, quote, I remember on one occasion, we were over sitting in my second boat at the Picton Marina and a tourist walked past. Scott said, rape the bitch, yelled at her, rape the bitch or something. He continues, quote, another time a young girl walked past and he said, show us your tits. He yelled it out so she could hear. He actually said, show us your tits, you slut. He was always saying things like that. He told me since that the way to make money was to make movies of raping women and killing them. He called them snuff movies. He was stoned when he said this. He was always talking about things like this, and he would quite often get really worked up about it, end quote. Why are you friends with him?
Yeah, nope, don't like that.
Yeah, I think you're probably a bad person too. If this is your buddy, you're like, oh yeah, my buddy, real piece of shit. He was always talking about making snuff films, raping and killing women. But yeah, he's fun to have beers with. Yeah. What the fuck?
Odd choice of friends, my man.
Odd choice. Hey, your friends represent you.
Yeah.
So I want to know what you're saying about women, mister. But anyway, I'm glad that you shared that with the world because that's very...
It adds to your case, sir.
Yeah, it's very condemning on this guy's personality for sure. So, like I said, the moral of the story is this guy is a royal fucking piece of shit. Now, at the time of Ben and Olivia's disappearance, Scott Watson was living full-time on Blade, which is the boat he built. And he had never actually put the name of the boat on it. Most people have the name of the boat real big on it.
Well, yeah, it's bad luck isn't it bad luck to not have?
I don't know. Probably.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's bad luck to have. Your dad just bought a boat. Wasn't he? What were we talking about?
Yeah, but he's not like a sailor. He doesn't know.
Any boat, it applies.
All right, fair. But yeah, he never put the boat name on it, which is interesting.
Bad
Less
luck.
Identifiable that way, one may say. But I don't know about that.
That's also true.
Now, that weekend, he had rafted up next to another boat that was owned by the Rutt family. Now, this was a nice family. Like, they were just nice people, and they were there to celebrate the holiday and have a good time. And so, being friendly, they invited Watson aboard their yacht to hang out with them. Now, at first, Watson made a good impression. He seemed friendly and sociable, but as the drinks kept pouring, his demeanor began to change. He started to hit on the women so obnoxiously that the family and their guests decided to just head to shore earlier than they had planned just to get away from this guy. However, Watson ended up just going to shore like right after them anyway, because now he had nobody to hang out with. So, I don't know. This family, I feel like, just be like, hey, get the fuck off my boat. We don't like you anymore. Fuck you.
Instant regret.
Now, at the party at Furno Lodge, Watson hit on at least 20 women on New Year's Eve that came forward.
He's one of those annoying dudes that just will not fucking stop.
Yes, exactly. Now, most of these women were blonde, as was Olivia Hope.
He's got a type.
Yes, he does. And one woman reported that the creep told her, quote, come down onto my boat and I will do things to you never imagined or dreamed of, end quote. Gross.
Ew, yeah, disgust.
So that, to me, my response to that would have been, so something I don't want is what it sounds like. What the fuck? That is so creepy. And what cracks me up about guys like this is like, why do you think that's going to work? Why do you think any woman wants to hear that from you. Like, that doesn't know you. Like, this is a stranger.
It sounds like he doesn't care. Like, he doesn't have anything to lose.
Exactly. Now, there were also more reports of Watson shouting to women on this evening, show your tits.
Get this man off the streets.
Like, why are you just yelling? And this is a grown-ass man. He is 26 years old. He's yelling at women, show me your tits. Like, what the fuck? Disgusting. But what I will say is that Watson wasn't just your run-of-the-mill creepy perv. He was a well-rounded asshole. So he wasn't just creeping on women. He was just really fucking bothering everybody. So while hanging out with a group of young people, he began to tease a young man named Ollie Perkins about this necklace that Ollie was wearing, saying that the necklace was gay. Being like, your necklace is so gay. Why are you wearing a gay necklace? And Ollie...
What a dick.
Right? Now, Ollie explained that the necklace was actually his sister's necklace, who was battling stage 4 cancer, and he was wearing it in support of her fight. And Watson responded to this by making jokes about how his sister's gonna die anyway.
Wow.
Why are you wearing that gay necklace?
I was really like,
gonna die anyway.
He just got so humbled and he said, nope.
No.
I don't give a fuck.
No, he does not give a single fuck. Now, Perkins' friends started to get in Watson's face after this.
And they should have.
Exactly. 100%. Good friends. And there was some sort of a small scuffle, but the bouncers from Vernal Lodge ended up breaking it up. And so it wasn't... Watson never got that good punch in the face that he really deserved in that moment.
That good beating.
Now, a witness reported to police that at 2 a.m., they saw Scott Watson assault a woman. They don't really say exactly what he did, but from what I read, I was left with the impression that he smacked her butt really hard to the point that it hurt her. Because they said she was assaulted, but the witness said that the woman began crying after he assaulted her. And as Watson was walking away from her, she asked, "Why did you hit me?" So that's why I got the impression he must have smacked her butt.
Yeah.
Now, this woman, again, was also blonde. However, she was never tracked down. The police were never able to figure out who this woman was and speak with her. This is all from a witness statement who said that they saw Scott Watson do this.
Okay.
Now, this timeline is very important because the witness says that this happened around 2 a.m. But Scott Watson later claimed that he was back on his boat going to bed at 2 a.m. He says that before going to bed, he stopped at the boat that was anchored next to his, so the Rutt family again. Mm-hmm. And he wanted to see if anyone was still up and wanted to continue partying.
I'm sure they were probably like, nope, we're all asleep, sorry.
Well, yeah, they were surprised to see Scott because they were sleeping. They were sleeping, and they're like, no, we're like, go away. We're not partying anymore.
Fuck alone. Move your boat.
So
Get away
Scott
from us.
says he listened, and he just went away, and he went back to his own boat and went to bed at that point. Again, right about 2 a.m. However, when police talked to this neighboring boat, the Rutt family, they say that Scott didn't come onto their boat until 4 or 5 a.m.
Damn.
So this is a big difference.
I would be so mad if especially this guy, came to my boat at 4 a.m. and wanted to party. I'd be like, sir, in the most disrespectful way possible, get the fuck away from me.
Yeah, for real. And the way that they describe, I read one description of this was that like they kind of just woke up. Someone from sleeping on this boat woke up, and he's just like standing in the doorway.
He was just waiting.
Just standing in the doorway. Hey, you guys want to party? What the? That is
Does
so
it look
scary.
like we want to party, sir? No.
That is so scary.
Yeah, no.
Now, the reason that this timeline and the differing timelines are so important is because, like I said earlier, it wasn't until 4 or 4:30 in the morning that Guy Wallace was taking Ben and Olivia and the mystery scuzzy dude to the mystery boat. So if Scott Watson says he was in bed at 2 a.m. sleeping, he can't be this mystery scuzzy dude. But, of course, that's not
timeline's
really
wrong.
corroborated because the family says, no, he did stop on her boat, but it was around 4 or 5 a.m. So let's say, hypothetically, Scott Watson comes back with Ben and Olivia to his boat. He goes over to the neighboring boat, and it's around 4 or 5 a.m. That makes sense because they were on the water taxi right around that time. Mm-hmm. Well, why would you go to the neighboring boat? To keep partying? And
How
maybe,
late do these fucking water taxis go? All night?
I think they're like unofficial. They're just people with boats, I think.
Okay.
I don't know that for sure, but that's what it sounded like. But here's the thing is, why would he go over to the other boat if he is this scuzzy guy and he did this? Well, to see if they're awake, maybe, to see if they're going to hear things going on his boat. I don't know.
But like when he's standing in the doorway and he sees that nobody's fucking up,
Right.
like maybe, that's
I don't
weird.
know. It is weird. The whole thing is weird. And the point is, like we always say, the math ain't fucking mathin'. Now, he tells investigators that he had left the next morning at 7 a.m. But based on the photos turned into the police, they knew that his boat was gone by 6 a.m. Because they saw photos that were taken around 6 a.m. and his boat was already gone. So it's another one of those things. Well, okay, he was also like drinking all night and he was wasted, being a fucking douchebag, causing a ruckus. So maybe his memory's just off with this timeline. Maybe he's just misremembering these times. But it's also like, why you lying? Stop.
Why you always lying?
I'll just insert that audio. Now, he also tells police that the night of New Year's Eve, they ask him, what were you wearing that night? And he says that he was wearing a sports jersey. But again, they collect all these photos from that evening from people who were at the party. And Scott Watson isn't wearing a sports jersey. He's wearing a denim shirt.
Once again, he lying.
Why you always lying? I'm not good with tone. So, even more interestingly, when they search all of his things, this denim shirt is never found. Now, Scott Watson later says that the police must have hidden it or gotten rid of it because I swear that denim shirt was in my things, whatever. And he says that
he would wear a fucking denim shirt too.
Yeah. Canadian tuxedo, my guy. I don't know what kind of pants he was wearing, but yeah, it's just interesting that they say they never find this denim shirt. And we are going to get to some things that sound questionable coming from the police.
Uh-oh.
So I don't want to make it sound like it's an absolute impossibility. But I don't know. To me, it sounds like he's fucking lying.
Not probable.
Now, Guy Wallace was shown a photo lineup that included Scott Watson's photo. So I don't know if it was 8 or 10 different photos, but they were photos of men that were matching this description that he gave police. And he also worked with a sketch artist to create a sketch. And so he's shown this photo lineup. Scott Watson's photo is one of the photos. And he's asked if any of the men could be the mystery man that Guy saw that night. Now, he told them no. None of these people are the guy that I saw that night. Now, he was shown another photo lineup, again, with Scott Watson's photo in it. And he, again, says, no, none of these are the guy that I saw that night. He is given a third photo lineup with Scott Watson's photo in it. But this time, instead of a normal photo of Scott Watson, they used one where he was like halfway blinking. His eyes are half closed. And some people speculate that they did this on purpose because Guy Wallace had described this mystery scuzzy guy as
looking fucked up.
Well, yes, looking fucked up and also having very hooded eyes. And so people say that that's why they use this blinking photo. And that's very, very interesting because when they give him this third photo lineup with Scott Watson's photo that has the blinking photo, Guy Wallace points him out and he says, that is the guy. I think that could be the guy. So.
Weird.
Now, So he points it out and he says that could be this mystery guy, but his hair is too short and he's too clean shaven. Because remember, Guy Wallace said he was unshaven and he had this longish, wavy hair.
Yeah, he looked like a bum.
And so if you look at the picture of Scott Watson, you'll see his hair is short. It's maybe about an inch long and he is clean shaven. Now, this is a big thing that people point to of why Scott Watson is not the right guy. Because if you look at pictures from Scott Watson that night, like the one of him wearing the denim shirt, he's completely clean shaven and his hair is short. So it's not like he cut it off and shaved afterwards or something like that. He kept his appearance that way. It had always been that way for the most part. So it's not really adding up when it comes to the description. Now, on top of that, like I said, he also said that this guy had really hooded eyes. But Scott Watson, when you're not looking at a photo of him blinking, he doesn't have hooded eyes. And that's one thing that people really point to, because this picture of him blinking is very, very important, and we're going to keep talking about it throughout the story. This is what I will say. I have one devil's advocate argument for this is when someone is wasted, and he was also smoking weed that night, or he says he couldn't remember for sure, but he might have been. But when someone's trash like that, I think that sometimes their eyes are partially they might look more hooded than usual.
Yeah, when I said he looked fucked up, that's what I meant.
Yes, exactly.
His eyes are half open.
Exactly. Now, on top of this discrepancies in his appearance versus the description of the mystery man, it's also important that his boat was a sloop. It was not a ketch, so it only had one mast, not two, Wallace had said. It also did not have a blue stripe. It had no blue on it. And it was discovered later that he had painted the boat right after New Year's. Freshly painted. And so a lot of people turn their head sideways at this. But what's interesting is that they found pictures of his boat before and it never had a blue stripe. So even though he painted it, it's still the previous version before he painted it did not match the description of this boat given by Guy Wallace in any way. It wasn't the same color. It didn't have brass portholes and it didn't have two masts. It only had one. Now, when Wallace was shown pictures of the boat, he told police that he was pretty certain it was not the boat that he had dropped Ben and Olivia off at that evening. He remains consistent about this boat. It was a ketch. It was not a sloop.
He goes, I know my boats.
For decades, he has stood by that. Now, when investigators inspected the sloop, they noticed that the kitchen was a mess, yet all the flat surfaces that would usually have fingerprints all over them had been cleaned vigorously. And he had also, there were cassette tapes and stuff like that had been wiped down, that had no fingerprints on them. So a lot of people point to this as, okay, he's wiping stuff down to get rid of, Ben and Olivia's fingerprints or any evidence of them being on the boat. But Scott Watson explains this away by saying that because he had lived on the boat, he liked to keep it clean. But it's still weird in my mind because they say that the kitchen was a mess. So I don't know. The math ain't mathin' again for me.
No.
Now, they found that the radio on the boat had been fully removed from the brackets and wiped down before being put back on. I don't fully understand why you would do that. I guess maybe to get rid of fingerprints and stuff, but why would you have to remove it? I don't know. But I don't know too much about boat radios, so. Now, there were also holes cut into one of the seat cushions, and even more sinister, there were scratches that were discovered on the inside of the hatch, where you go down into the rooms of the boat.
How'd those get there?
Well, Scott Watson would tell you, oh, it's just normal wear and tear on a boat from tools and carrying stuff in and out and having people in there and whatever. But the prosecution is later going to claim that it was from someone trying to escape from the boat. Yes. Now, in a search of the boat in January of 1998, there was a blanket that was collected and examined, but nothing of significance was found on it at first, until it was examined twice more. And it wasn't until the third examination of the blanket that 2 blonde hairs were found on it. However, they were found after that same lab had handled hair evidence that was taken from Olivia's hairbrush that was from her house to get her DNA. Mm-hmm. And it was later discovered that the bag that contained this hair from the hairbrush had a hole in it. So, to sum it up, they examined this blanket 3 times. The first 2 times they find nothing. The third time they find 2 hairs. But by the third examination, that same lab had already handled the hair evidence that had a hole in the bag. Okay? Now, only one of these hairs had a follicle, and you need the follicle to do the DNA testing. Mm-hmm. So there is a single follicle that they are able to test. So mitochondrial DNA testing showed that the hair was linked to Olivia's maternal DNA line, but it did not conclusively prove that the hairs were hers. It could have been her mom or her sister's hair. But again, there's no reason for them to be on Scott Watson's boat. That doesn't make any sense either. Or it could be that they came from her hairbrush and it was any one of the 3 girls. Now, once these results were in, investigators decided that they had enough evidence to move forward with charges against Scott Watson. But first, they wanted to speak to their star witness, Guy Wallace, one more time because they were going to need him to testify at trial if they wanted to have any shot at convicting Watson. Now, unfortunately for them, Guy Wallace was not as on board as they had hoped. The community and the media knew that Scott Watson was the main suspect, and they knew that his sloop did not match the catch description that Guy had given police. Many people questioned Guy's story and whether he had been mistaken or if he was lying about this for some reason to protect himself. So when the police tell him that they're going to charge Watson, he tells them that they have to have it wrong because he saw the catch. He knew it was a catch. And he says that he actually saw that same catch that he reported seeing on New Year's Eve. He saw it again recently at a different marina nearby. So he tells the police that they better look into it so they don't get the wrong guy. But then the very next day, he comes back to them and admits that that was a lie. He never actually saw the boat again. He just saw it that night. But he made up the lie because he wanted them to believe his story about the catch. Mm-hmm. Everyone's calling me a liar and I'm not a liar. Like, I saw a catch. That's how adamant he is. But also, not a good move to lie to the police to convince them that you're telling the truth.
Yeah, counterproductive.
Yeah, a little bit counterproductive. Now, police are pressing him. They're like, think hard about how certain you really are that this boat was a catch. And at this point, he does waver and he tells police that he's pretty sure, but he admits that he might be misremembering. And with that, after 126,000 hours of investigation and $3 million of resources put into the case, Scott Watson was charged with the murders of Ben and Olivia on June 15th. Now, Scott Watson's trial began 1 year later in June of 1999, and it lasted for 11 weeks. I've kind of given you the main points from the prosecution already while I was talking about the investigation. So let's review Watson's defense. So the defense argued that there was no physical evidence conclusively tying Watson to Ben and Olivia at all, let alone their murders. There were no bodies, there was no blood, there were no fingerprints from Ben or Olivia found on the boat at all. Yet, we have this hair evidence, but the defense argued that this could have been contaminated in the lab by the hair evidence from Olivia's home, pointing out that it was odd not to find 2 blonde hairs on a black blanket in 2 searches and then to randomly find them in a 3rd.
Yeah, that's very odd.
It is extremely odd. Now, they argued that due to Watson's prior record, his reputation, and his abrasive personality, which I think is putting it lightly, they argue that he was unfairly targeted by the police. They say that the police thought Watson was basically an asshole and that confirmation bias was at the core of their investigation. One notable example of this that's highlighted is a statement that was made by the lead detective inspector on the case, Rob Pope, who reportedly declared, quote, "It's as obvious as dog's balls that Scott Watson is guilty," end quote. And boy, if you guys don't think I'm going to carry that into my everyday life, I love that phrase. It's as obvious as dog's balls. What a disgusting thing to say.
But like, how accurate?
How accurate. Yeah. Now, the defense also argued that not only did Watson's boat not fit the description given by Guy Wallace, but Watson himself did not fit Wallace's description of the scuzzy dude either. Like we said, the hair was too short. He was clean shaven. He didn't have these hooded eyes, all of that. Now, it seems like Wallace himself was not sure about this either, about him fitting his description, because during a deposition before the trial, Wallace told the attorneys that the mystery man he saw was disheveled, sleazy, unshaven. Again, what he said from the beginning. And after he gave this description, one of the defense attorneys pulled out a photo of Watson that was taken around 10 p.m. on New Year's Eve. In this photo, like I said, we can see he's clean shaven. He doesn't really look disheveled. And when Wallace sees this photo, he's shocked because he says that the man in the photo looked nothing like the blinking photo that he had been shown by police. And after he made the identification using this blinking photo, the police never showed him any more photos of Watson. So once he sees this photo and he's pushed by the defense attorney, Wallace tells them in the deposition that the man in the photo could not have been the mystery man. And he says he knows this because he served the mystery man drinks earlier that night. I saw him twice. That's not the guy.
Oh,
However, even though he says this in the deposition, it seems that Wallace comes around because he ends up testifying at trial that he did indeed think that Watson was the mystery man. Like he points him out on the stand.
Yeah, but is that only because they showed him pictures?
Well, no, because the pictures are what made him say in the deposition it wasn't. He says it was that the police were really pressuring him. Now, as for the description of the boat, Wallace stood strong on his original description, and he told the court that Watson's boat was definitely not the boat that he dropped Ben and Olivia off at that night. The prosecution's counterargument to this was that authorities had used photos, videos, and witness testimony to track down 176 boats that were there that night, and not a single one of them matched Wallace's description of the boat. So they were saying not a single boat in any of the photos or videos matched it. So they're saying that boat was not there.
Yeah, it didn't exist, but
you have to be misremembering, which honestly, we'll talk about what we think happened at the end. I agree with this, though. I will say, I agree with that portion. I think that Guy Wallace is misremembering this boat. It makes no sense that there would not be a single photo or video of this boat. Now, lastly, the prosecution brought in 2 witnesses who were inmates with Scott Watson while he was imprisoned awaiting trial. Both of these inmates testified that Watson had confessed to the murders to them. And one of them even said that Watson had acted out how he killed them in front of this guy. And with that, on September 11th, 1999, the jury convicted Scott Watson of the murders of Ben Smart and Olivia Hope, and he was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum non-parole period of 17 years. Now, like I said at the top of the episode, despite multiple appeals, Scott Watson remains in prison to this day, with many speculating that his refusal to admit guilt is a key factor in his continued incarceration. The parole board heavily weighs remorse and acceptance of responsibility when considering early release, making an admission of guilt a significant hurdle for those maintaining their innocence. So this has fueled debate, with some arguing that Watson's steadfast claims of innocence suggest that he might not be guilty. And after all, if he were, wouldn't it make sense to just confess and get an earlier release?
Mm-hmm.
But this is not the only or even the strongest argument that Scott Watson supporters make. Now, since the trial, one of the prison witnesses has come forward saying that he completely made up the stories about Watson confessing to him. He says that he was pressured by police to say this, and he just went along with it because he was worried that if he didn't, it would affect his upcoming parole hearing. Even more damning, the star witness on this case, our Guy Wallace, has recanted his testimony and has been extremely clear to the media that he believes that Scott Watson is innocent. He says that police showing him the blinking photo of Watson was a manipulation tactic, as he had told them multiple times that this mystery man had these hooded eyes, which Watson did not. And he wasn't the only one. That female witness, Roz, the bartender, also recanted her statement identifying Watson as the mystery man after she saw photos of him that weren't the blinking photo. She sees more photos. She's no, that's not the guy that I serve drinks to.
It sounds like the police literally spent more time forcing them to say that it was this guy than to actually look into the possibility of it not being this guy.
Now, Wallace told the New Zealand Herald that he has carried this guilt for decades, the guilt of helping authorities put a man that he believes is innocent behind bars, and also the guilt of helping the real killer walk away unscathed. Sadly, Wallace passed away in 2021 with that guilt still on his conscience. So,
poor guy.
Yeah, poor guy. So, here's the question, and what it all comes down to is, do we think that Scott Watson is a murderer? Or do we think that he's simply a misogynistic, racist piece of shit that went down for one crime that he actually didn't commit?
I don't know. My gut's telling me that wasn't him.
I don't know either. Someone suggested this, and I immediately read when I started Googling it, that this was like, people think he's wrongfully convicted. And you, like, a lot of times when you hear those stories and you get into the nitty gritty of it, you're like, oh, fuck yeah, this guy did not do this. Mm-hmm. Okay. Then the more I got into the story, the more I was like, I don't know. I kind of think this guy did it. Yeah. Because when I do my research, I kind of do it chronologically. Like, how did it start? And so I'm reading about him telling people that he wanted to rape and kill women. He's all obsessed with these blondes all night and being so fucking creepy and all of this stuff. And I was like, all right.
It wouldn't surprise me if he did do it, but that's not the guy that was with them.
Yeah. But I also I just think that eyewitness testimony is very unreliable.
Well, yeah.
And here's the thing.
Especially when the cops are like, oh, but look at this guy 15 times. Of course you're going to be like, oh, well, he looks familiar now because I've seen his picture 40 times before this.
Right. And the thing, too, is like, for me, it's like Guy Wallace, he went back and forth so many times. Like, hey, yeah, it is him. No, it's not. Yeah, it is. Yeah. And what that tells me is that I think Guy Wallace doesn't know.
Yeah.
I think Guy Wallace doesn't remember this man enough, and there was so much pressure on him. Look, this murder is going to go unsolved if you don't know. And so he said one thing, and then there was all this pressure that he put the wrong man in prison. So then he said another. I don't think he this is just my opinion. Obviously, I'm not Guy Wallace. I don't have his eyes and his memories. So I don't know for sure. But to me, it seems like Guy Wallace doesn't know either way. He doesn't know that it wasn't Watson, but he also he's not sure that it was either. And yeah, so I don't know how I feel about this. I guess where I'm kind of ending up is I kind of think he did it, but I think that there is not enough evidence to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt. And
without the eyewitness testimonies.
Right. And even these eyewitness testimonies are obviously not reliable.
Yeah.
Really, without the eyewitness testimony, there's that one hair. But there was a hole in the bag that had the hair from her hairbrush.
The hair wasn't there the 2 other times they checked it on a black blanket, which unless they're shitty at their jobs, then how would you not see a blonde hair?
I read that it was like really
blanket?
small, like it was a really small piece, but I agree.
That would stick right out. And not even the first, I could see missing it the first time if it was super small, but like to check it again and still not find it, but then the third time it magically appears.
Well, and that's the thing is some people say, oh, maybe it was accidental, that like they didn't know there was a hole in the bag and the hair was just like on a table or something. But some people think that they planted the hair on purpose, like someone from that lab.
That's what I mean. That's the vibes it's giving me.
And this is the kind of thing that it's like, this is why the people in these jobs, this is not a job that you can make a mistake.
Yeah.
Where you can miss a hole in a bag. Because if the hair really was on that blanket and it wasn't contaminated, now you've given them reasonable doubt because you fucked up and missed a hole in the bag. And for me, personally, and I know that the jury, they weren't given all the information that I just gave you about, the recanting of the eyewitness testimonies and all of that. But 3 of the 4 witnesses recanted their testimonies. I'm sure there were more witnesses, but 3 of the 4 that we talked about.
Dude, I'm sure the prosecution for this case was like, dude, come on, give me a fucking break. After everybody's, nope, I don't actually think that's what I was wanted to say.
I think he probably did it, more likely than not. But I think that he should not have been convicted of this crime because I see so much reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
And the way the justice system, at least in the US, but I believe it's the same in New Zealand, the way the justice system is supposed to work is it's supposed to protect the individual and their freedom. And that is why the standard is beyond a reasonable doubt. And I think it's dangerous to lower that standard at any point because do I think he probably did this? Yeah, but I think there's a chance that he didn't. And the prosecution, they didn't do their job of proving this beyond a reasonable doubt, in my personal opinion. So I don't know. I don't know how I feel. I know a lot of people I hope the New Zealanders listening, we love you guys, and I hope you're not like these stupid bitches. He's innocent or he's guilty. I'm sure people feel really strongly about this case either way. But I just think that this was not great police work, not great investigative work. And I feel bad for all involved. I feel bad for Ben and Olivia's family. I hope that Scott Watson did it. Because otherwise that's horrific for him and for the families. And then there's a killer out there. But it's just crazy. And then I also wonder, where are their bodies?
Yeah.
Because if he just dumped them in the bay water, I mean, I guess he could have taken them out to the middle of the ocean or something.
Yeah, that's true, I guess. But I don't know. A lot of gaps in this one.
A lot of gaps. So, not a great ending. Sorry, guys. But that is the story of the presumed murders of Ben Smart and Olivia Hope and the maybe right, but also maybe wrong conviction of Scott Watson. And on that note,
I'm going to go take a nap.
We need a nap. We're having a rough day. So... all right, court is adjourned. Bye.
Okay, bye.